We are finally starting to see Democrats, one, they're almost all acknowledging the special counsel was appropriate to a point. I think they felt like they have to, but Ric Grenell's joining us. The second part, Rick, they're finally starting to acknowledge when it comes to national security, is it this, they won't say it definitely impact our national security, but because of the amount of time these documents were in these unsecured locations, they are finally admitting, Rick, that it may. Even Adam Schiff had to say this may have impacted our national security because of what we know about some of these documents. I mean, Rick, taking away the legal issue and going to the national security issue of it, the fact that this stuff was just floating around and it's the highest level. You've talked a lot about overclassification, but there are some things that are supposed to be classified.
Yeah, look, there's no question. My concern is that Joe Biden was vice president at the time where these documents were taken, and he had no authority to declassify these documents. And so the reality is that it's clear that they weren't declassified. He didn't ask to have these documents declassified. He didn't go to President Obama, who was the person who would have been able to declassify this information. And it's concerning. I will also say that we've watched how the media and the political types in Washington at first tried to really downplay this by saying, oh, there's just a few. CNN was literally running a headline that said under 10. And so there was a collective idea of downplaying all of this. And that, to me, is a troublesome part of this. 6 years of these documents floating around in an unsecured place, and they were clearly not declassified.
Yeah, we have a FOIA that went out to Adam. The FOIA, really, the purpose of this FOIA, again, they're not going to get the classified documents. The purpose of the FOIA is to go to National Archives and say,
what were you doing?
Did you say this was? Did you ever come to an agreement that you were done asking for documents? And how did these not?
6 years.
How did these not make your list? What was the problem here? What's the where were the communications to Biden to say we need these documents? And why did you stop asking for them, or did you not know about them and not have them? Because they're supposed to have this kind of in a like a spreadsheet, if you will.
Exactly. I'm putting it on the screen right now. This is what we sent to the National Archives on January 12th, and it's a demand for documents as to what was going on here. We're not going to get the documents that are classified, obviously. We're not asking for that. But it'll be very interesting to see how they respond. But, Rick, we've also got congressional investigations going on. I want to play a question from Jonathan Karl, ABC This Week, to Adam Schiff. Take a listen.
Should the White House cooperate with the House Oversight Committee on this?
Well, those requests are completely hypocritical when you consider what he said about the Mar-a-Lago situation. I think Congress ought to handle both situations the same way, and that is we have to get a briefing from the intelligence community about any potential risk to national security of where those documents were and what they contained. But Congress shouldn't try to interfere with the investigations. I think, sadly, that's what Mr. Comer's object is.
This is coming, Rick, from the guy that interfered with every investigation to serve his own purpose. Adam Schiff.
Yeah, look, I was director of national intelligence when Adam Schiff was leaking against Donald Trump constantly as the chief intelligence House member. It was really scary to watch his team work. I had people who worked for me in the intelligence community who came to me to say that they will no longer brief Adam Schiff on intelligence matters because they were afraid that he would leak against them and ruin their career. I had multiple people come and say, take me off being on rotation of trying to give Adam Schiff or his team any type of intelligence briefing. This was the reality. The intelligence community was beginning to notice that their words were being completely manipulated by Adam Schiff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Rick, what we obviously the American people are trying to figure out is the serious level, because the Democrats made such a big deal. I mean, there was a raid at Mar-a-Lago. They've made a huge deal about appointing the special counsel and this criminal investigation. And then last week, I mean, just on Thursday, a special counsel gets appointed by Merrick Garland. And we went through the statute, and we've talked about maybe the abuse of this. but that you can't treat one differently than the other. So when you get stuck in this situation, I feel like that's what the Democrats have done. They've weaponized documents. And by weaponizing the documents and treating Donald Trump this way, they finally got stuck where they could no longer treat Donald Trump differently. They had to appoint a special counsel. We went through the statute, Rick. You don't appoint a special counsel just to issue reports. I mean, it's kind of become that, but it's really the first part of the special counsel statute is a criminal investigation that you believe the Department of Justice cannot do on its own internally. Criminal, I mean, that should be the media's number one point is Joe Biden is under criminal investigation right now.
Rick, here's what I was going to follow up with this. We've talked about this weaponization of the agencies. You're the director of national intelligence, but it seems like to me that the FBI has been totally weaponized here, and the Department of Justice.
Well, I want to point out one thing to the listeners, and that's the ACLJ documents request, because it gets to the heart of what you're saying, Jay. It gets to the heart of why was there not a raid on Joe Biden? Right. And what our document request is doing is going to the National Archives and saying, when did you end your search? Did you end a search? Did you have any type of a process? Because if they ended the search and we now know that they missed all these documents, then after finding one document, they should have immediately raided the rest of Joe Biden's homes because they were told that the process ended and they had proof that it clearly wasn't the end.
Well, here's what makes no sense. If you're the FBI, you've got documents found at the Biden Penn Center this is after 6 years, by the way. So they've been out there for 6 years. They're found at the Penn Center. You ask yourself, why did they find them all of a sudden? That's number one. So was there communication with the National Archives? Hey, we're missing documents. I don't know. We're going to find out. Number two, then they find him in the garage next to the Corvette. And then you say to yourself, if the FBI, there's documents floating around here. Then on Saturday, they announce, guess what? We found 5 more or 6 more documents in an office in his home. So then you say to yourself, okay, there's been 3 times here where the documents just mysteriously are now being disclosed. Why haven't you done a search warrant? That's what the question really is for the American people here, Jordan.
Yeah, I want to go to the phones. Clay in North Carolina.
How can anybody be satisfied with what's going on and what's happening, especially this document stuff?
On this issue with the documents, Rick, last question here, following what Clay said, is it is frustrating for the American people to hear this. And then and most people are thinking not a whole lot's going to happen here, and they're not going to indict a sitting president. They can't. So there is this, kind of fait accompli feeling out there.
What Clay is touching on is the frustration that everyone outside of Washington, D.C. has, which is just a practical look at the situation and say no one in their right mind can see that the FBI or the intelligence community or the National Archives are playing fair. They're just not playing fair. We all know it. And while they scramble to pretend like the situations are different, they are absolutely different in one aspect. Joe Biden was the vice president without declassification authority. Donald Trump was the president with declassification authority. That is a fundamental difference. And that, for me, makes the FBI's lack of going on offense, lack of concern of finding the rest of these documents, proof that we are in a situation where DOJ and FBI have weaponized their power against their political enemies.
Rick, as always, we appreciate your insight into this as former acting director of national intelligence, now our senior advisor for foreign policy and national security.